Thanks everyone, and thank you for staying on for this presentation. It's been a long afternoon. I hope to deliver you some pharmaceutical gold as I follow 2 presentations with gold. And thanks Chrissy for the introduction. My name is Jason Carroll. I'm the CEO of Tryptamine Therapeutics, and because we had 13 presentations today, I feel like I'm in the spirit. I'm going to repronounce our company name just for today. I'm going to call it Tryptamine, because that way we're all in it together, right? So that's what I'm going to do. I've been in Australia now for about a year. I grew up in Australia but went away for 15 of the last 19 years. Built the Remicade business, which is an IV infusion for GI conditions with gastroenterologists in the US, with the US team. And 4 years working in licensing and acquisition under Mr. Herwig Janssen, who's the son of the founder of Janssen Pharmaceutica. Managing director roles in the Philippines with Janssen, and then in Vietnam with all 5 J&J companies reporting through to me. That was $100 million business and about 1,000 employees, and not one word of Vietnamese apart from thank you. And then I followed that with 6 years with Inova Pharmaceuticals, and they are owned by private equity firm Pacific Equity Partners, although they sold that out a year ago. And they made about a $2 billion profit on that sale. So essentially I started my first role straight out of university, 20 years old. I started in the pharma industry, 34 years. I've worked in pharmaceuticals and I love it. And I've struck another one here, real gold with this company. I'll put up a science slide first because I think it's important for people to consider that we haven't just got a psychedelic here. We have a real pharmaceutical molecule and a pharmaceutical medicine that will help people with all sorts of neuropsychiatric conditions. What we're up now with a phase 2 program, phase 2 ready asset, we are already within the top 5 companies working on psychedelic assets globally. And we only listed in May. We're already caught up to the top 5 because there are so many people working in this area over the last 30 years, but not one approval really has been made because no one really is operating with a pharmaceutical knowledge and a pharmaceutical way of doing filing, of making sure we do the right studies with the right data under the TGA guidance. People think that everyone's going to just love these things. Psychedelic medicines are dangerous if they're used in the wrong way. They have to be used with the right data, showing exactly how they're going to be used. And you have to see that proof in the right data. Anyone using these things before that data is available is not really doing the right thing. You can see this chart up here. Now, the top one shows you what happens with a patient before they're treated with psilocybin. The second one shows you the connections that are present within the brain of a patient after they've used a psilocybin. Now, for those that don't know, we have an IV infusion of psilocin. Now, psilocin actually is the active ingredient in psilocybin. So the only difference being, one is in a capsule, you take it, metabolizes in the liver, gets distributed in the body, separated into all different types of products, and active psilocin goes into the brain and does the job, about 18% of it. Takes 4 hours to really get the full effect, up to 10 hours to do the procedure, with 2 physicians in the room at a cost of about $15,000 in labour. The other one, IV, psilocin, pure, not adulterated with all these other things in a natural product. Straight into the bloodstream, 100% straight to the brain, no first pass metabolism. Which one do you think is going to produce a better result? Now, the action of psilocybin here is dual, and most of us, and certainly when I grew up, I was told don't get hit in the head too many times because the number of brain cells you have now is the number of brain cells you're going to have when you get old. And if you lose too many, something's going to be a problem. But what I found when I joined Therapeutics, and one of the reasons why, is understanding the data that I was shown in a condition that I thought was not treatable, which is binge eating disorder. Very hard to find. Most people would look at someone and say, oh, they have a weight problem. And most GPs do the same thing. And what do? They give them Ozempic or Wegovy. Up to 50% of obese patients seeing a doctor is given a product they should not be given because their brain is wired in a way that makes them want to open the refrigerator 100 times a day and makes them want to eat far more than they ever would have thought they could ever eat. They're embarrassed, they're uncomfortable, they never tell anyone, and all people on the outside see is, this person's fat. And then when they lose weight, they go, wow, you look so great. But the thing is, the mental disorder of binge eating is completely different. These patients will put back all that weight on and more, and will they feel better or worse the second time around? That's the biggest oversight in the use of weight loss products because these patients seek them out. Everything, laxatives, appetite suppressants, whatever they can take or jab, they will take. So what psilocybin will do, and psilocin, structural neuroplasticity, which means it has the brain's ability to relearn like you would as a child. When you see things for the first time, you learn about them and you keep that memory. If you rewire your brain, you can learn new things, the things that you want yourself to be and not what people expect you to be. Your brain will rewire those things and change your behaviour, not give you a short-term fix. More neurons, more synaptic connections. As well as structure of the brain, you get functional neuroplasticity. It's a great word, neuroplasticity, I love it. Synaptic remodelling following brain dysfunction or injury. Get an injury, your brain tries to fix itself. It's naturally for the brain to do that. But fixing itself, having a disorder, is also something that needs to be treated. It needs to be corrected. It needs to be rewired. And that's where products like psilocybin come in. So Tryptamine Therapeutics, my apologies, is a drug development company first and foremost. We are working in the field of psychedelics to deliver a precise blood level of psilocin, the active ingredient in psilocybin, to this whole category, focusing on eating disorders first off and also chronic pain. Two conditions that have up to 75% of patients untreated or treatment resistant. They've tried so many things and they cannot change their behaviour. Addictive behaviours are very hard to change. Everything from gambling to smoking to drug addiction. These are all addictions. They all operate in the same part of the brain. Eating disorders are in that zone. We are delivering an innovative and scalable IV infusion of psilocin. No one else can deliver an IV infusion of psilocin or psilocybin apart from us, globally. I'm going to touch on binge eating disorder because this is the reason why I left my career in large beastie pharma to start a startup. Because you're looking at people, up to 50% of obese people are taking products they shouldn't be given. They have binge eating disorder. They need to be given something else. And binge eating disorder has no currently approved treatments, apart from therapy. That's the only thing people can use. And how often does that succeed? Not very often on its own. Patients with BED have multiple comorbidities. 94% have depression. 70% have mood disorders. Sorry, that's lifetime psychiatric disorder. Sorry about that. 59% depression, 32% PTSD, and 23% have attempted suicide. 23%. And what do? We treat the outside and not the inside. This is our 2A clinical trial. University of Florida, the world's leading hospital and university when it comes to eating disorders. This is what I saw. This is why I leapt out of large pharma and joined and wrote a $500,000 check when I joined in the IPO at actually the current share price today, which is 2 cents. Short little tip there. Every single patient that was given, this is actually our oral psilocybin, not yet IV. Obviously it's going to be even, we expect it to be even better. Every patient of the 6, we're going to do 12 we're looking for 50% response. We got a 100% response in patients for all 6. And every one of these patients, you can see them there, no matter how many binge eating disorder episodes they had, whether it was 24 a month, whether it was 8 a month, everyone reduced those episodes by 80%. Everybody. And this was after one single dose. This wasn't after a month or 3 months on tablets or 6 months of injections, or this was one dose, 80% reduction. Now, the interesting thing about this is not just about that, it's also they also had a commensurate reduction in both anxiety and depression. 60% reduction in anxiety, 45% in depression. This is world-leading data, and this is a side benefit, not just the total benefit. Antidepressive drugs do not get a 45% reduction after one dose. Never. Never. The other part that's important here is this one dose was durable. 60 to 90 days after treatment, you can see the reductions in all those patients. And that maintained on that one dose for 90 days, even though the drug is out of the system completely in 24 hours. That's because these patients have had their brains rewired, resorted, reordered. Their eating behaviours had changed, basically from the day that they were treated. And that was kept for up to 3 months afterwards. We have an experienced leadership team, but we have a small team. Large pharmaceutical organisations do not want to acquire infrastructure because they remove it and it's expensive. They want to buy assets. My 4 years in business development across all of Asia taught me that, and Herbert Janssen taught me that. We have great people on our scientific advisory board. Professor Robin Carhart-Harris is considered to be the key researcher in psychedelics over the last 30 years. We have Professor David Castle, who's our head of psychiatry at the University of Tasmania. He is the most cited psychiatrist in the fields of obsessive-compulsive disorder, actually in schizophrenia, but also in body dysmorphia, which is a huge issue within eating disorders. And Professor Philippa Hay. She is Australia's most renowned and most cited professional in eating disorders, the whole spectrum of eating disorders. These people are the best at what they do in the world. So why IV-infused psilocybin? Why would you want to do this when the gold standard, the current standard, is to give someone an oral capsule? Because it's better. It's so much better. You're looking at a short duration of treatment with IV infusion of psilocin, 1 to 2 hours, and that patient is done. 8 to 10 hours with an oral capsule. And that, as I said, requires 2 people for that whole 10 hours, because the second point is even more important than the first. Within 15 minutes, a patient with IV-infused psilocin will be inside a neuroplastic or an altered state or a psychedelic state, whatever you want to call it. I don't like using the word psychedelic. This is a true pharmaceutical medicine. And you're looking at potentially 12 or more indications where you can get one molecule working, when the pharma industry would have 12 or more products for those indications, because they do not have products that can treat more than 2 or 3 indications in that psychiatry perspective. 1 to 2 hours for oral treatment, just to get a response. And the problem is the doctor doesn't know what sort of response he or she is going to get. Well, that patient, 3 out of 10, will say, I didn't feel anything, I didn't get anything. 1 or 2 out of 10 will say, can you please stop this? And 5 out of 10 will get a dose that will do the job. How do you get 100% of patients to get the blood level of active ingredient that you need to do the job the first time? There's not going to be a cheap treatment. Precise targeting of blood levels, reversible. You cannot reverse the capsule. You can't. Once you take it, you're there, no matter what happens. IV infusion, stop, start, speed up, slow down. You can stop it. Patient comes back nice and smoothly. And commercially scalable. Is 10 hours commercially scalable? Or is 2? Very quickly, therapeutic zone. Okay, 1 minute. Therapeutic zone, you can see it. That's where we believe psilocin will work effectively. Behind it, you'll see 22 patients that each have taken a capsule of 25 milligrams of psilocybin. The variability is huge, 4-fold difference in the lowest to the highest dose. What about no variability? Can you achieve that? These are the 3 doses we took into our phase 1 study for IV-infused psilocin. 11 patients, the only 11 patients in the world to ever have an IV infusion of psilocin. 10 nanograms per mil of psilocin, 20 and 30. 20 minutes to bring them in, 2 hours across. PK levels, the same. Hold them there, no change. I'll jump straight to the last one. People can look at it while I get off. Yeah, and then stay out. So you can see where we are. We're ahead on many of our areas that we said we would do at the start of our IPO. We're ahead of our target. We've been on the market for 5 months on the ASX. We plan to do an accelerated program in phase 2 for our IV-infused psilocin. As I said, 1 of 5 companies in the world at this level. And we're talking about billion-dollar companies, and we're capped at 20 million today. So you guys can do the math. Thank you very much for your time.